Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a closer look at, you guessed it, my favorite semiconductor company, Nvidia. So there are reports, and I just want to say Nvidia comes out with, there's new news on Nvidia almost on a daily basis. So this should just be called Jose Najarro, the Nvidia channel, right? But all jokes aside, there are reports coming out that Nvidia is expected to make an ARM-based PC chip, a CPU, to kind of combat Intel and AMD in the space of the PC market. So in today's episode, I want to take a closer look at what we know and also just share my overall thoughts. You guys know I'm huge into the semiconductor space. I'm huge into Nvidia, so you're going to get the best news here. So make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Now let's get started. All right, so let's start off by price action and all the companies kind of involved in here. So there's going to be four companies in my opinion. First is Nvidia. We can see Nvidia today was up nearly 4% and it's up roughly 0.36% after hours as well. Stock is sitting at roughly $430. In the past 5 days, the stock is still down roughly 2%. The other player that is impacted, in my opinion, like I mentioned, there's fourth, is Intel, your favorite semiconductor company. So Intel is down 3%, and we can see when the news came down, right? The stock, most of the dip came after the news report. The main reason Intel is down is if Nvidia is actually making a CPU, then obviously it's going to combat, and let me just say, if Nvidia makes a chip, it's not going to be a bad chip, right? I have very, very high hopes and high expectations of even the first generation or the first iteration of any chip Nvidia makes, just because they are this crazy, crazy team. And if we take a closer to CPU, this is not going to be their first CPU, right? They already made the Grace CPU, which goes onto data centers, right? So they already have a team, some form of knowledge here. So they're going to take that team and knowledge and bring it into the consumer side and the computer side.
Finally, I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for their subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
So if they are going to do that, I do believe it's going to be a really a great chip. Maybe not the best chip, but a great chip. And companies like Intel should be worried a little bit because of the loss of market share. I do believe, though, that Nvidia, if they are following this and if the reports are true, it is going to be for a very niche market. So maybe Intel investors don't have to worry too much unless you are really focused into that niche market. And I'll talk about that niche market in a bit. But we can see Intel took quite a hit after the report. We can also see another big player here in the CPU space is AMD, ticker AMD. Right now sitting at $100. We can see kind of when that news popped out, the stock did drop in a nice 2% or so. Most of the drop is coming after that report of Nvidia, right? And the final company is one that actually went on the positive direction, and this is ARM Holdings. So ARM is a company that licenses their technology, and that technology is what NVIDIA is kind of using. We're going to see in a bit all the different technologies that NVIDIA actually makes with ARM. The list is insane. I'm pretty sure most people don't even know how many products NVIDIA already creates with ARM partnership, right? So we can see, because it is a licensing fee, right? So if the reports are true, if it is a licensing fee, obviously ARM is going to win. But more importantly, if it is in the PC market, that is a very, very high volume, high product market. So that means even more licenses, even more money for ARM. And we can see the stock was up roughly 5% after the report. So investors are pretty excited about this in forms of ARMs. When it comes to Intel, maybe investors are not that excited. So let's take a closer look. So here CNBC has a quick update on it. First, they do mention that the reports from Reuters, I always butcher the name, but they do mention that Nvidia and AMD are both working on ARM-based PC chips. I do believe most of the market is worried about Nvidia because AMD is already in the CPU market, right? So it's not too much of a competition if AMD is already in there, but there is going to be a new player, and Nvidia. Based on the reports, it does mention that Nvidia could release a PC chip based on ARM as soon as 2025, according to routers. I'm pretty sure it's routers or routers, whichever. But regardless, overall, we do see this worry for Intel. And first, I want to say this should not be a surprise, and let me explain why it should not be a surprise. Because Nvidia is mainly known for a GPU, but guess who comes in and has made GPUs? First, AMD. AMD has always been like the CPU GPU player, so they've always kind of fought against both Intel and Nvidia. But we can see this is a competition to Nvidia. Most recently, about I want to say in the past few years, Intel has also released a graphics market, a GPU market. So they've released their own GPU line. And I want to say Nvidia is one that, hey, if you step on my toes, I'm going to make sure I step in your toes, right? We see it a lot in the cloud serving providers. I've done plenty of topics about that, where we see kind of cloud server providers create and try to design their own chips. And in return, Nvidia tries to invest in startup cloud server providers and really try to send them their technology. So in one way or another, Nvidia is kind of vengeful, in my opinion. When they see someone really come for them, they're gonna go back at them maybe even harder. So we can see AMD and Intel already try to take NVIDIA's market share in the GPU market. If the reports are true, we are seeing that NVIDIA is now going to do the opposite. It's going to be like, hey, look, you guys are coming for my GPU space. Now I'm going to come for your CPU space. Again, this is not the first time that NVIDIA has designed a CPU. So they already have a CPU. That is the Grace CPU, and that is coming out into the data center markets as we speak. I recently did a video where we saw Supermicro announced. Let me take a closer look at Supermicro GH200. Where 5 days ago, 5 days ago, Supermicro starts their shipments of NVIDIA's Grace Hopper Superchip servers. So we can see NVIDIA is already in this space, and they are already producing products with the ARM architecture. And I do believe that's very important, right? Because it does show that NVIDIA has some history with ARM architecture, and they have some history with CPU. So overall, this product is not just going to be a brand new product where they need a new team. They definitely have the talent. They also have the technological innovation and the historical backlog of knowledge to be able to create this. So I wanted to mention a little bit more of ARM. Right, so I do have a weekly exclusive videos on semiconductor. I do have a weekly video of semiconductor episodes, and I did do a deep dive on ARM. And during that ARM episode, I took a look at a lot of companies that already use ARM, and I'm just going to showcase my NVIDIA solutions here. But before we go any further, guys, I'm trying to hit 30,000 subs by the end of the year. If you haven't, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Like I mentioned, I do have a weekly exclusive video on the semiconductor market. Click join to learn more. Special offer at fool.com/Jose. Free newsletter at josenaharro.substack.com, and free semiconductor news at semiconductorwatch.com. So take care. But NVIDIA, for example, if you don't know, they have processors that go into the robotics, into the automotive industry. For example, the Jensen Orin, the Jensen Orin Nano series, and you guessed it, all those products use an ARM-based CPU. So NVIDIA knows how to work with the ARM products that ARM already has. The NVIDIA Drive Orin, which is the crazy chip that goes into a lot of the new solutions that are coming out in the autonomous vehicle markets, use NVIDIA Drive Orin, and you guessed it, NVIDIA Drive Orin uses ARM Cortex CPU cores. Another one is the Grace Hopper CPU. The Grace Hopper CPU, the Grace CPU uses an ARM Neoverse V2 cores product. So NVIDIA already has a lot of knowledge in here, and I just wanted to kind of show the receipts behind it so you know that, hey, I'm not just saying that NVIDIA knows this stuff. NVIDIA definitely knows this stuff. Now, what I want to say, though, is NVIDIA, in my opinion, if they're entering in this market, they're going to enter it in a very specific way. And I do believe they're going to enter it in a high performance, high price, high margin space. I don't think NVIDIA is going to be out here trying to create, at least in the beginning. Maybe they might push off in the little bit, but when it comes out, maybe you can come back to this episode and be like, Jose, you were right, just like you're always right about NVIDIA, because you're the greatest NVIDIA YouTube channel ever, and I should always subscribe and thumbs up and leave a comment on your video because you're great. But yeah, all jokes aside, NVIDIA, because they have the power of their GPUs, because they have the power of software, because they have the power of AI, of 3D design, of gaming, they're going to focus on high tier products. And if they're making a CPU, I do believe when we start to see products, we're going to see laptops, we're going to see desktops, we're going to see workstations that are going to be for those types of workloads and for the high end tier, right? We're going to see the probably $3,000 plus laptops, $2,000 plus laptops, $2,000 desktops and stuff like that, right? So Nvidia is going to make sure that they're going to show the product and the strength of their GPUs, which are great for AI, and they're going to make their CPUs kind of really be worked with that. So in my opinion, Nvidia, when they first start off with this in 2025, is going to be in a very niche market and is going to be for the high margin, high tier levels, AI workloads, gaming workloads, content creation, video creation, and all that. So I do believe that's where it's going to go. I think this is a big opportunity for Nvidia, in my opinion, as they are not only becoming a big player in the data center space, but the consumer market, as we all know, is huge. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they start also to make chips for high tier phones. I know they've done that in the past, but when we are seeing more ARM-based products from Nvidia, we've seen it in robotics, we see it in data centers, we're going to see it in the PC market. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we're going to see it high tier. And I do believe that's where Nvidia is going to focus, high tier, high margins, right? They're not going to be, maybe not at the beginning, maybe as they see the market trends, they might focus more on more affordable options. But if they do, I do believe they're also going to enter into the mobile market one way or another in the upcoming years. So that's some of my predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about Nvidia and some of the solutions they already have in the ARM ecosystem. So take care, have a good day, and see you next time.